It was early in the year 1961. Here at Cape Canaveral, the Project Mercury astronauts were making bets on who would be the first man in space. Everything was ready. On Pad 5, the Redstone rocket was waiting to go. But halfway around the world, in central Russia, Yuri Gagarin was about to shock the Americans and the world. On April 12, 1961, at 9:07 p.m. Moscow time, Gagarin climbed into his space capsule and was rocketed out beyond the Earth's atmosphere and into space. I looked and looked, but I didn't see God, Yuri would say later. A frustrated Werner von Braun observed that when the United States arrived on the moon, we shall have to pass through Russian customs. Yuri Gagarin's first flight into space not only captured the imagination of people throughout the world, it was also a powerful stimulus to the American space program. Twice the Russians had beaten the Americans into space, first with a satellite and now with the first manned flight.
We were heading then toward orbital flight. That was part of our project, and here went Gagarin around the Earth once and then later on Titov. So it was sort of a blow to our American psyche, I guess, at that time, but we recovered well, and instead of giving up, we just went back to work and worked even harder.
So the main challenge that we faced immediately was a launch vehicle that would be large enough to put up a manned spacecraft.
May 1st, 1961, less than 2.5 years from Project Mercury initiation. Countdown for a manned flight was in progress. That's a day that you will never forget.
Less than 30 days after Yuri Gagarin first lifted off into space, the Americans were readying themselves to venture into that unknown world that lay high above the Earth. Both the public and the press were caught up in the anticipation and excitement of the newfound space race.
And the press picked up on us. We're heroes because we volunteered for a program to replace chimpanzees. That's about all I can claim. that doesn't exactly make me a hero in my own mind. So we laugh about that a little bit. And at this time, we were getting inundated with telegrams from the Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Stop flying these monkeys and chimps. So finally, we flew Alan Shepard. Shepard doesn't tell that story as often as I do.
On May 5th, 1961, Alan Shepard lifted off from Cape Canaveral atop von Braun's Redstone missile and rode it into space. They called it Freedom 7. America had finally put a man into space.
Well, you know, a very interesting thing happened after my flight, Freedom 7. We went to Washington to get a medal from President Kennedy, have a parade with Vice President Johnson, and we were supposed to get out of town that afternoon. Kennedy said at the last minute, when you're finished with the parade, come back, we want to have a meeting, which was totally unscheduled. So we came back into the Oval Office, and he said, now tell me again, how did you react, and how did you fly, and how did you feel? And, you know, everything was exciting to him.
On May 26, 1961, only 21 days after Alan Shepard's first flight, President John Kennedy stood in front of the Congress of the United States and took an astonishing risk. By promising the world that America would land on the moon within the decade, he gambled both his reputation and political career on the fulfillment of mankind's oldest dream.
A lot of historians have said, well, you know, it was a political decision, and I suppose everything that comes out of the White House is considered to be a political decision. But I'm convinced that he was totally involved with it. As far as I'm concerned, it was not a political decision.
And I get a call, I'm in Virginia, the president's going to visit Houston, Texas, and he asked me, well, you've got to come to Texas, and I'm head of flight operations, or that part of flight operations at the time. You got to come brief President Kennedy on how we're going to go to the moon. I said, you've got to be kidding. I don't know how to go to the damn moon. I never heard of going to the damn moon, but I found out pretty damn quickly, I'll tell you that. It took me a couple of weeks, and I came down here and told the president how we were going to go to the moon.
As I look back on Mr. Kennedy, and he was brought up in a family where they loved challenges. And the Russians challenged our country by getting into space before we did. And I think he was not going to turn his back on that challenge. He really wanted to show the world that this country was the greatest technological nation in the world.